What's up, Fight Freaks? I'm the Combat Remix, bringing you the MMA Fix you so desperately need if you're a diehard fan.
And not someone who thinks a sickle sweep is a disease.
Today we got another Combat Corner discussion. Appreciate all you Fight Freaks joining me in the Combat Corner. I know you're used to more of my fast-paced kind of videos that I typically upload, but this one's going to be a little more laid back. I didn't really have a script to put out, to really lay out for this video in real time. I just wanted to sit and formulate my thoughts and opinions on a few issues. And if you differ with me or agree, but have maybe a slight caveat to anything I may say, post a comment. So first thing, we found out some time ago that Jorge Masvidal is not going to be getting the title shot against Usman, but it is now official that Gilbert Burns is slotted to face Usman. Now, that fight is still a little bit a ways to go, so I don't want to get into the breakdown and predictions just yet, because I most likely will do another prediction video when the time comes. But right now, I know a lot of people are upset when they hear about this. I know some people think it's the best move. Personally, I think it's the best move. I want to see Gilbert Burns fight Usman, mainly because, based on merit, it makes sense. After the fight he had against Woodley, an absolute dominating fight, I would say even more dominating than Usman's fight with Woodley, you gotta use this when he's on this roll. You can't just put him on the shelf for 6 months to a year and say, yeah, you'll get the winner of Usman and Masvidal, because before that fight, before the Woodley fight, yeah, he's been slowly gaining more and more popularity, but he's not an A-list popularity fighter. He's a very talented fighter, definitely a top 10 fighter, maybe the best welterweight in the world. But that doesn't mean he's the most popular fighter, and right now we need to utilize his popularity as an all-time high. The fight between Masvidal and Usman, that fight will always be there. I mean, obviously, maybe not 5 years from now, but Masvidal is right now, he's an A-list fighter. And even if he wasn't the best skill fighter, let's just say he wasn't even top 10, with everything that's going on, he's got the BMF belt, he's backstage fight he had with Leon Edwards. These are all things that really got him a big hype up. And I really didn't want to see him fight, and then Gilbert Burns, the win he had over Woodley, the whole non-stop that the run he's been on, I didn't want that to just go away. So in my opinion, this is the right fight to make, and I'm glad the UFC did make this fight, because we need to see Gilbert Burns right after a nice victory where it's still fresh in our minds, and even if he wins or loses, this will only raise his stock or raise Usman's stock, and then they'll be ready to see Usman or Gilbert Burns fight Jorge Masvidal. And again, this is pending whether or not he does well. I know he's got some beef with Dana White in the UFC right now, but we've seen people ask for releases before. Nate Diaz was on the shelf for a while. He came back. There are numerous fighters who they had their, whatever, whether it be contractual, money-wise, whatever the case may be. They came back, and I'm not losing sleep over the fact that it's a possibility Jorge Masvidal might retire or go to Bellator, because ultimately, I could be wrong, I don't think it's going to happen. We've seen some crazy things happen in the UFC, but if I had to choose right now, gun to my head, I think Masvidal's getting the next title shot regardless whether Burns wins or Usman wins. And I think that this whole him requesting his release or issues he's having with Dana White in the UFC, I think this all is playing into a factor. This is all about timing. This fight will happen relatively soon, and then whoever wins, they'll call out. I mean, they might even call out Masvidal. I know if Usman wins, there's a good chance he's going to call out Masvidal. I know Covington is still kind of in the race. It's kind of up in the air, but ultimately, could you say who has a better chance of winning? And not just on merit, but who has the better chance of arguing their case for, business and the hype and all these things kind of go into it. So I'm leaning towards Masvidal. And you could say, yeah, these problems with the UFC. Well, again, I think this is all perfect timing for them to get worked out, just in the nick of time for him to be the next challenger for the title. And again, this is regardless whether Usman wins or not, because I know they have beef and I know they had their whole backstage thing. So if Usman wins, I can almost guarantee that he'll probably get the next title shot. But if Burns wins, I mean, can you imagine how crazy of a fight that would be? Now, I know I'm saying this as if, I have some mole in the UFC and I'm getting all these great ideas and maybe they have a plan or something. But no, these are just my thoughts in real time. Nothing is set in stone. Masvidal may never fight again. We've seen crazier things happen, but I do think he's going to get the next title shot. So, but enough on that. I do, for the reasons that were just spewed out, this was the right fight to make. It works out perfectly. This can happen. The timing seems good, and we all want to see Masvidal fight regardless of who he ends up fighting. But it's still early, but I do kind of want to feed in who I'm thinking is going to be the champion after this fight between Usman and Burns. Now, basing it on their fight with Tyron Woodley, again, 2 dominating performances for both fighters. Just in a very superficial level, without diving too much into the statistics and everything, most people would say, and I tend to agree, that Gilbert Burns had the more dominating performance against Woodley. And that's without going into too much detail. But if you really go into it with the interviews and everything else, you would have to say that only strengthens the claim that Burns seems to have a better chance, at least when comparing their fight to Woodley. And MMA math is kind of garbage. I know we've all seen terrible examples where MMA math means absolute squat. But Woodley said after the fight between himself and Usman, when he lost the belt, he was saying going into that fight, things weren't going well. He wasn't even sure why he took the fight. He didn't feel like himself. He just never pulled the trigger. He didn't even want to watch film because he goes, looking back on it, that wasn't him in there. That wasn't him fighting. That wasn't his good potential. But yet he gets dominated by Gilbert Burns, and they said, okay, what happened? He said, nothing. Everything was great. My training camp was great. I've never felt physically better. And he just got beaten. He had no excuses. He said Gilbert Burns was just a better fighter, and he beat him. And he looked fast, and he looked strong, and his cardio seemed great for 5 rounds. And as of now, cardio doesn't seem to be an issue for either one of them. But just based on the overall body of work and how many rounds he's put in, I guess I would give a slight edge to Usman just because he's kind of shown more in going into deep waters and still seemed to have plenty of gas in the tank, especially in his fight against Colby Covington in the 5th round. He seemed to really, definitely didn't seem to be hurting at all in the gas tank. Now, Usman, an absolute great wrestler, especially in terms of MMA. He really knows how to utilize that, shut people down. He has great cardio. It takes a lot of conditioning to use that exhaustive style in terms of wrestling and how strong you have to be and constantly take down your opponents and hold them down. People have talked about that numerous times. But they always bring up the fact that Damian Maia was able to get his back, and there was that controversial what would have happened because the ref separated them. And he had the side of him, kind of the back area to him. And he was so good at Jiu-Jitsu. Well, Gilbert Burns is excellent at Jiu-Jitsu as well. He may not be the better MMA wrestler, and again, this is debatable, he's gotten a lot better, but he's still an excellent grappler and a better overall grappler. So let's just, for argument's sake, say everything is kind of even, or even give Usman a definitive advantage. Although he has better striking power, and I'm talking about Usman, he's not a better technical striker than Burns. People have gone into the great improvements of the technical striking of Burns, and not only that, just his speed, his combinations. He's clearly the better technical striker and the faster technical striker. Now here's a very interesting thing I want to bring up, and I just kind of thought of it very recently, and I do want your opinion on this one. I know Dana White says as far as business or who is it better for the UFC to win, he doesn't think in those terms, but right now, in real time, I'm thinking, who do you think it is better for the UFC to actually win? And part of me is actually leaning towards Usman. And that may sound a little bit weird to say. I do have an argument for either one. But Usman, he definitely does have that beef with Masvidal. And I think that's going to almost solidify a guaranteed slot for Masvidal to come back. Dana White will probably work whatever contractual or money, whatever issues he has with Masvidal. I'm sure he'll find a way to nip that in the bud so they can fight again, because they're going to play those clips where they had the beef with each other, and that's going to be an amazing fight. I think that's something that they're definitely not going to pass off. And also, people have criticized Usman's style before, so if he's no longer the champ, I don't see too many people putting their money down to buy pay-per-views to watch him in the co-main event, or I mean, obviously the Diehard fans would absolutely want to see it because he's still a top-ranked fighter, even if he's no longer champion. But a guy like Gilbert Burns, who has numerous knockouts and he has more ways to win, he's a little more versatile. Maybe that's somebody that people want to see as champ. Be sure to give me your comments on anything we talked about. Appreciate you watching, guys. Please let me know if you like this style of video. Let me know any other topics you want me to cover in the next Combat Corner. I'm the Combat Remix signing out, and we'll be back to bring you your MMA fix.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the greatest lightweight in the history of the sport.
I'm the world champion. At the king of building, yeah? You're looking at him.
But what he does is he gets Kharlamov fading, or as he uses Kharlamov fading to one direction.